for the experts who are joining us today. First, we have those that are living and breathing the challenges of supporting working parents with care options. And later in the program, we'll talk to two experts who have probably forgotten more than I'll ever know on the topic and are working tirelessly for a better system. So let's get right into that first discussion. I am joined this afternoon by two incredible leaders who are on the ground doing the hard work of ensuring parents have access to care and employers are equipped to support them in the way that makes sense for their company and their employees. Alessandra Lasama, Tutors, founder and CEO. Thank you so much for joining us here this afternoon, Alessandra.
I'm delighted to be here. Thank you for inviting me to this very important conversation.
Absolutely. We are also joined by Lilia Vergara. She is the Director of Human Resources for Dr. Bronners. Lilia, thank you so much for being here this afternoon.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So let's get right into it. And I'll start with you, Alessandra. Tell us, I was just recently introduced to Tutors, and I'm so excited that I was and thrilled that you're here and have brought Lilia to the conversation. But tell the audience who might not be as familiar, tell us about Tutors and tell us how you are working directly with employers and really addressing their needs.
Absolutely. So Tutors is reinventing childcare, making it convenient, affordable, and on demand. We decided when we founded this company that we really wanted to create a universal platform where all the different shareholders within the childcare space could connect in real time to source the right childcare program for working parents, as well as those providers, whether they be a family childcare program or a center-based program, could connect with all those families that are looking to place their children in an early childhood education program. And so, as you mentioned, many of the challenges have always been, how do we connect those families with the right program so that children are best served and so that every child has access to early childhood education, especially in those very, very early 5 years of life, which, as we know, are critical to the developmental milestones of children in kindergarten readiness. So Tutors is a online platform that has today over 122,000 different childcare programs that any working parent can access directly online on their computer or via their app. And they can search for in real time any kind of provider that meets their very specific requirements. Over 120 criteria, whether it be languages, whether it be types of meals, types of discipline for the program, whatever that specific requirement is, the parent can search, connect with that provider, and determine whether or not that is the right solution. And as it relates to employers, as a single mom, having been in the workforce for over 20 years, I'm going to say now, I recognize the challenge of moving my career forward when I didn't have a place for my child. And so as an executive, I then attempted to incorporate childcare solutions for my staff, and I found that there were a tremendous amount of barriers in doing that, whether I didn't have the opportunity to do childcare on site, or whether I didn't have know-how to engage with childcare providers to enroll the children of my staff. Anyhow, long story short is that this universal platform that Tutors has created gives employers access to all those thousands of different providers that have real-time availability, so their workforce can very easily connect with them and enroll their children, and most importantly, making it a turnkey solution for even the smallest of company to incorporate a contribution towards enrollment fees and or the management of FSA accounts, or all of the bells and whistles that go behind providing a benefit to employees.
That is fantastic. And I love the turnkey sort of piece of it, right? You're really supporting employers and things that they may need your sort of expertise and support to sort of run that, or actually to even in some ways sometimes help them figure out exactly what it is they might need for their employees, and you can help them discover that. Lilia, I'd love to hear about Dr. Bronners. Tell us a little bit about the company. Who are your employees? Who are you trying to find a solution for? And tell us about your experience working with Tutors.
So Dr. Bronners is the number one, produces the number one natural product within the organic and fair trade space. We do have over 300 employees here at our headquarters in Vista. And, we have a good split of about 160 employees that are still working on site that have to be here every day. And we still have about another 140 employees that are working remote. And that could range from office personnel to marketing and sales. But a lot of our parents still have that need of childcare, whether they're working on site or whether they're working from home. That need didn't change because the kids still needed, whether it was school or some help with before or after care. So that need didn't go away regardless of where our parents were working. So Tutors came around, and so our employee surveys kept coming up with the stress of childcare, and our parents, it didn't matter whether they were remote or working on site, the need was still there. So we partnered with Tutors, knowing how easy it was for our parents to be able to find the childcare that they needed, because as you know, during the pandemic, you couldn't go visit 5 or 10 locations. This platform allows you to do it all online. So it made it very easy for our parents to find locations, see what it looked like, but also be able to pay directly onto the platform, which Dr. Bronners pays a portion of it. So it just made it very easy for parents and for us to be able to have that childcare payment and have a safe space for them to attend.
And I would suspect, just given like you said, you've got some people remote, you've got some people in person, everybody has a different need, right? Some people might need some backup or some day-to-day or some, sort of emergency care. Does Tutors sort of offer that for you as a whole sort of suite of options that the individual parent can decide what is best for them?
Yeah, so that's the beauty of Tutors. They have here in San Diego, there's a huge network. So parents are able to pick for if they need before or after care, whether it's weekend or even more of an independent type of setup. Tutors offer that to our parents. So every child is different. Every family is different. So their needs really vary. So being able to tap into the Tutors network makes it very seamless for our parents to be able to see what's out there.
That's awesome. Alessandra, tell us about what you've seen, or if you've seen anything, a shift over the last 12 to 18 months during this public health crisis. What have you seen in terms of your relationships with employers? Have they shifted their thinking? Are you seeing more interest?
Absolutely. I think that there's been a shift, but first is congratulating companies like Dr. Bronners, who even prior to the pandemic, they were always forward thinkers, and they really always understood that family unit is imperative to get the best performance out of our workforce. And so not many, actually, I believe that the stat is close to 8% of employers nationwide offered some sort of a childcare as a benefit prior to the pandemic. And so I really want to congratulate companies like Dr. Bronners. But as we came, and navigated this dreadful pandemic, I think, and I say that if there is anything to come away from the pandemic in a positive way, is that the theme of childcare really percolated to top of minds, because communities realize that really it is that sticky glue that holds communities together. And so employers are not not any different. So employers have recognized that the workforce that has completely dropped out and or reduced significantly their hours at work has been primarily women, and B, primarily due to their childcare responsibilities. And so in order to reset that economy, in order to really pick up productivity and re-engage all those working moms back into the workforce, it's imperative that their family unit is in a good place. And where does family unit start? With our children. So peace of mind for working parents is imperative. And unless we know that they're in a great place that meets the requirements that are specific to my child, it's a really big challenge. And so, we're very fortunate to see, and having now, been a couple of months since the reopening, especially in California, where we're headquartered, to see that employers are proactively looking to engage with us, partnering with us to see what best way to structure that childcare as a benefit, whether they have deep pockets to contribute, to the enrollment fees, or whether they need a simplified solution just to ensure and guarantee that their staff can have access. Think about all the specific requirements. Going back to Lilia's comment, there are all sorts of shifts, right, in the workforce. So there's swing shifts, there's graveyard shifts, there's weekend shifts. So depending on what industry, and childcare needs are across all of those shifts. So by the mere fact that we have such a large network of providers that have all of the different characteristics that are required by employees, whether it be, in the geography that they need, close to home or close to work, right, or close to a neighbor or close to a relative, the language, right, whether it's a special needs situation, right, we have that access for employers. And so with a very basic partner agreement, we can turn up a childcare as a benefit solution within a couple weeks of a initial partnership with the smallest employer to the largest employer.
That's really wonderful. And I had a couple of just comments or reactions based on things you said. One of the things you mentioned, sort of the silver lining of this tragic situation that we've all been living through. But I do think the spotlight on childcare as a workforce issue, which is something we've been talking about at the chamber for a while, is really, I think, what made people sort of think differently, right? The impact on the economy. It's not that we don't care about it as a important educational foundation for our children, but I think it was, it's this bottom line sort of, this is impacting our ability to get back to normal, right? And so and I've heard this from others, they say, regardless of sort of where you are on the political spectrum or where you are in terms of a stakeholder in this issue, talking about it as a workforce issue really resonates. And so I think that sort of is part of the, is part of what has brought us all here today. And then, you ended talking about being able to turn on this benefit. We had this question from the audience, and I wonder if, Lilia, you could address this. How do you all, speaking of, you could turn on a benefit quickly to an employer, depending, really across the range of things that they might want to do in support of their working parents. How did you all determine the percentage of childcare costs that you would pay, and what you were going to, sort of use Tutors for in terms of benefiting your workers?
Yeah, so we initially, pre-COVID, we had a childcare assistance program of $5,000, which was just a number that we came up with based on average cost of childcare, and just knowing our employee population. So that was a number we came up with. Once COVID hit, and we realized that a lot of our parents that maybe relied on free childcare at school or was relating, depending on childcare from possibly grandparents or family members, that wasn't an issue. Now with the pandemic, where there had to be a little bit more boundaries created, some of our parents started to see, oh, I can't rely on that childcare anymore. Now I need before or after care. So we knew that childcare was limited. The cost was quite higher. So we increased it to $7,500 a year to help pay for that cost.
Have you, just a quick follow-on question for you. Have you noticed, I mean, you said you'd had this benefit prior to COVID, you've increased it as a result. Have you sort of tracked, what this has done in terms of support for your employees? Do you see an impact on turnover, productivity, or any of those sorts of metrics? Just curious.
So so turnover is very low. We're at, I think the last time I checked was under 5%. And a lot of it has to do with, being able to keep our best employees. And I definitely think that with this benefit, it has helped us retain some of those parents that otherwise would have left because they had those responsibilities to be at home and take care of their kids. By being able to offer this benefit, we've been able to retain them and have options now. Whether they decide to leave at that point, it's up to them. But we are giving them an extra option, so they're able to utilize this program. But definitely, we have seen our turnover has not increased even after the pandemic. So definitely feel that this benefit has contributed to it. And we've consistently have heard from our employees through various surveys that childcare is a concern and a stressor. So as we continue to hear that, we realize, okay, we need a program to help offset that and be an option for parents. So we definitely feel that there's also a sense of calmness, or anxiety levels are not as high, at least not for the childcare side, once they're able to find a provider.
What about on the recruiting side? Is it a benefit that you use to recruit? I mean, you don't have a lot of turnover, so that's a good thing.
But we have a lot of openings because
You're growing.
We've taken off this last year. So yeah, but as we recruit, that is one of the options that we continue to talk about because our benefit package is amazing, but childcare does come up. They do ask, what's the limit or what's the maximum? How does this Tutors program play about? And what if I have a provider that I would like to be part of this network? So that conversation does come up. But yes, the childcare and the medical coverage are our top questions when we're talking with new candidates.
So great. Alessandra, let's talk about small and medium-sized businesses.
Sure.
You referenced it earlier. You talked about it as a sort of key constituency for you guys, I guess. What do you hear from them, or how do you, are they how do they deal with this? It's, childcare is not a cheap benefit, and they're, trying to, stay within their margins. What are you hearing from them?
Sure. So if I could just piggyback real quick on what Lilia was saying, which is so important as an employer, having been an employer for 2 decades, I can tell you that the highest cost in replacing a valuable employee is the recruitment, the training, and the ramp up period to get them to the levels of productivity. And so the viewpoint that a forward-thinking organization such as Dr. Bronners has taken in really understanding that retention has the highest yielding ROI for them, because it can be as costly as spending 100% or 150% an employee's wage just to replace them before they even start to produce their production at the levels in which, a valuable employee that we had in the past. So it's important to note that as we're thinking about the large employer, well, they've got deep pockets and a lot of resources. Typically, they have in-house, recruiters to help them with that turnover if they have that turnover. But now getting back to your question in why a huge emphasis that we have at Tutors is in assisting the medium and small size businesses, is because think about a business with 5 employees losing a valuable employee, right? They've lost a significant portion of their productivity, and the pain involved and the cost involved in replacing that resource can really devastate their operation. And that is true all the way, across the board for SMBs. And so the fact that they can incorporate a childcare as a benefit for as little as $20 per employee with a resource tool that gives access to their workforce to engage with the different types of providers is a haven. It's like let me take a New York microsecond to decide whether or not this is a benefit that I need to incorporate into my operation. And it truly gives them a competitive advantage to stay in markets and compete with the larger organizations, because if we think about who's having babies and who has those 0 to 5 kids, mostly we're talking about now millennials and Generation Z, right? Gen Zs. And as we look at them, coming up into the workforce, we know that in the next 5 to 10 years, they're going to make up that 30-40% of our workforce. And so what is imperative to this new upcoming generation is home work balance, or right work home balance. I said it backwards, but same thing, right? Kapikua, they call that in my language. So the reality is that if we're not thinking as employers in creating a benefit that provides and aligns with the value system of the upcoming workforce, then we're going to be, we're not going to be competitive, no matter whether you're a large employer, small or medium size. So again, the whole care economy is not a really hot topic, but the primary reason for that is I think the mentality of the upcoming generations have completely changed as it relates to how important quality of life and that work-home balance is.
Yeah.
And this helps.
I want to ask you this question that came in from the audience. As the U.S. Chamber, a big, sort of constituency for us are our state and local chambers all over the country. And I know you're well aware of them at Tutors because you're a member of some local chambers. And but we've got a question coming in from Montana. And the question is, how can chambers help to get childcare providers listed? They're interested in potentially using a Tutors in Montana to, as kind of a short-term solution for them. So what's the dynamic? What's the connection that needs to be made, and what can chambers do to really
Absolutely. I think that awareness is where chambers can really help us, because our platform is ever growing, and we rely on state information to help create what we're going to call it an initial profile for every state licensed or state exempt of license, but state registered program within Tutors. So it's really, really easy to come into Tutors and claim a childcare profile, and then work to enhance it, providing with all the details pertaining to the program and adding the virtual tour capabilities and all that fun stuff, for which we have an ops team, a wonderful ops team that is very, very helpful. But I think that education, we need to let every provider across the U.S. know that this is a free service to them. This is a complete software resource tool that helps them automate their program management, that helps them promote their program to the thousands of working parents that are in search and in need of childcare. It helps them connect directly. We're not the middleman. It helps them connect directly with these families. And more importantly, it helps them tap into this huge and growing pipeline of employers that are subsidizing and sponsoring childcare solutions for their workforce, so that they can in turn, open enrollments for these parents. So chambers really could have a significant role in helping us bring the awareness to all the markets and letting providers know that this is a resource tool designed also to help them be more profitable, because as you know, supply and demand is off. We're in a deficit, right? At least, prior to COVID, it was close to 44% deficit in 0 to 5 care to the demand. And so in order to encourage more entrepreneurial spirited individuals and lots of moms that would be fantastic, that love children, right? Opening a family childcare program, they need to know that there are resource tools to support them and to set them up for success. And that is part of what Tutors does for the entire childcare economy. We've created a very powerful resource tool for the smallest childcare provider, in-home childcare program, or the most sophisticated center-based childcare program to adopt at no cost to them, to be in the network and accept enrollments from employers and parents and everyone at large.
Yeah, and I think, not that you need a middleman in this process, but chambers obviously also have the employers as their members. So then once you're trying to get employers to understand this is an option for them and a pretty, as you said, turnkey tool that they can, for low cost, provide to their working parents. Lilia, I'd love to ask you maybe to think about and provide maybe, any advice that you would give to other employers who may be on the edge or thinking about what to do, or how do they even start? What's the first step?
I think the first step should be for some of these employers to find out what the need is. Send out a simple survey. You'd be surprised how much employees would share with you if you ask all the right questions. And if childcare is a concern or just a benefit that you want to consider, definitely look at Tutors to see if that is a platform that'll work for you and your organization and your parents. But definitely checking in with them, checking in with the employees to see what their need is. You'd be surprised of how much they'll share with you on some of the concerns they have, and especially when it comes to childcare, it's a huge concern for parents. Because there's no business that's getting away from this. This isn't just a Dr. Bronner or a California shortage. This is across all sizes of organizations and all across the country.
Thank you so much for saying that. And I want to just put a finer point on that. That is sort of the first step that we give to when we're talking to employers all the time. They come to us and say, we want to do something. We're like, do you even know what your employees need? That survey is so critical. Like, ask them first to do your homework before you try to start providing solutions. So we've got like 1 minute left. So I'm going to give you the last word, Alessandra. Thank you so much for being here. What would you say as sort of, I guess I'll ask you the same question that I asked Lilia. What would you say to an employer or a chamber who's out there saying, we want to provide solutions in this critical time? What's the first step they ought to take?
I would say that in the times that we live in, if employers are not ready to take childcare and make it part of their benefits package, they're going to be the exception. And the reality is that in order to re-engage women in the workforce, which have taken such a huge hit during the pandemic, childcare solutions are imperative, and there isn't an excuse for employers. We have absolutely every option available for the smallest employer to the largest employer to incorporate childcare as a benefit. And speaking to what parents need, only second to healthcare is childcare. So childcare is not just a family issue. It's a business issue. And the sooner that employers recognize that and do something about it, the faster they're going to, re-engage full productivity and, get back to thrive. Thank you.
Well, I cannot thank you both enough. So grateful for your perspectives. I think we learned a lot. I think we got some good tips. I think if we can engage more employers, which we are every day. If we've got the childcare providers working hand in hand to meet the needs of workforce, I think we can really make a big dent into this crisis. So thank you so much, Alessandra, Lilia. Appreciate your being here. So there is obviously another really key player in the mix as we think about where solutions come from